Folks, welcome into sportsbookreview.com. It's NFL Championship Weekend football, a doubleheader on Sunday with some Hall of Fame potential. I'm excited to go over these games. We sort of went over them Tuesday, what was going to take place, who we thought was going to be in. Practice reports now coming out, the picture getting clear. I'm Donnie Seymour, he's Kyle Purviance. We are sportsbookreview.com, and it's time to talk about the NFL. Kyle, big Sunday afternoon, man.
Oh, big Sunday. And I mean, look, there's worse ways to spend a Thursday afternoon than, sipping on some Bushmills and pissing off some Packer fans. So I am really excited for today's show. Yeah, I mean, I've been on the Packers all week, but my mind is starting to change as I realize there's a lot of holes with that overrated team. So I'm going to have a lot of fun today. I'm looking forward to this weekend. And like I said, looking forward to anger in the chat box. Let's rock and roll.
Good stuff here. How about this, Kyle? 79,600 people have hit the subscribe button. I think when we did the show on Tuesday, it was around 79,400 in that range. Yeah. So adding just roughly, as we like to say, about 100 subscribers per day. It's going to be fun when we finally hit those triple digits at 100,000. That's a credit to you guys that watch the show, support the channels, and come in here and bring that noise each and every week. Thank you for doing that. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, that little red button below where Kyle and myself are talking, turn it gray and also hit that notification button. So, hey, it's 4 o'clock on a Thursday. We're ready to talk some championship football. You can come in here and say hello. 2 games on the docket this week. And the best part about this, Kyle, again, I always say this, like we usually have like 15 games to go over, just 2 games today, quick in and out, because here's what we're going to do, and here's the way the stage has sort of been set this week. Tuesday, talk about it, recap those divisional round games, set the scene on Tuesdays. Now we flip it over to Thursday where we have a better feel who's in, who's out, a closer to game day, weather reports that we can have. But the big show is going to be on Sunday when we go on here live and talk about these games at 2 o'clock. We're going to have all those prop bets that we've been doing really well. We'll know obviously exactly who's in and out. So if you're watching the show live, if you're watching it here on the replay, Sunday is going to be an awesome show, action-packed once again like we did last week, and we'll have some fun doing it. So just setting the table here on what to anticipate and expect here. It's nice to get in and out with some football talk here on a Thursday.
Yeah, it's Thursday. It's Thursday football. It's championship week, and then we're going to have, a week off, maybe play some cold weather golf. It's going to be Championship Sunday is always a lot of fun, and there's some teams playing this weekend that I cannot stand and players. So it's going to be, bittersweet for me, especially that NFC Championship game. I mean, to me, I'd rather just like both teams all get COVID and they call up the Rams or something to play in the Super Bowl. I honestly wouldn't care. But it's going to be a lot of fun. This is a big weekend. Sunday, we're going to have a lot of props. I'm going to be working on 8 props per game, something. I'm going to try to find a bunch of stuff, some long shots. We'll talk DFS. Sunday's going to be a lot of fun. This is a fun week. It's bittersweet. We love playoff football, but then it's also coming to an end, which means, I got to start making an appointment at the unemployment office. So we got to, work hard on all of that. So there we go.
Look, man, a lot of things setting up for the future. That's the true futures bet that you have to make a bet on those. But I do love the prop bets too, because it only takes when we talk about those like Scotty Miller props where it's, a half of a catch or 7.5 yards, pops up with that 30-yard blast in the second half. Everybody catches in. That seemed like to get the most traction. Like, yeah, got that one. I was like, hey, all it takes is one target for the guy, and he can certainly come up and make a impact in that. But let's start here and go over the game and sort of set that stage once again here. Updated line moves on the game. Not a lot of movement on either end since Tuesday, but sort of that Tuesday, Wednesday when you saw Patrick Mahomes out on the football field and full go, which, he is full go. They don't want to say it because it's bad optics that he didn't have a concussion Sunday. We thought he had a concussion. He was in the protocol. We can't ramp him up. So we say, hey, limited. Let's enter that in. Then you saw on Thursday, which we'll talk about the practice reports again, limited once again. But looking at that, the 2.5s were quickly gone. Now we're seeing the 3s across the board for Kansas City, Kyle, and 3s with juice, -115s, -118s showing up across the board. Yeah. If we look at the Green Bay game, not a lot has happened here. Some books are going to sit at that 3.5 with light juice. Some are going to sit at that 3 range between -120 and -130, depending on where you're shopping at. So the question now is, what are we going to anticipate from Thursday on this live show over to Sunday? Are we looking for green? Because to me, I think we play that little teeter-totter here of 3s to 3.5s bouncing back and forth in Green Bay. And I also think some reason in this Kansas City game, I'm not going to be surprised if this game goes to a -4 for Kansas City, because we're going to talk about the injury reports in just a few moments. But that's the game I see that might be able to break through and get to 4. I don't see Green Bay getting to 4. I think it straddles that 3.5 line here.
Yeah, barring some sort of weird injury, late pop-up on Friday or a COVID thing, the Green Bay-Tampa Bay game seems pretty well set. But I think you're right. The one that you will see move as once Patrick Mahomes is officially ruled in and Bashaud Breeland's officially ruled in and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which I think is a big one, especially when you look back at the first game those teams played, if they're all announced in, which it looks like they're all on track to play from today's practice report, that one you could I will be surprised if we don't at least get to that 3.5 number. I think 4 is possible in that one. Green Bay, Tampa Bay, probably going to sit right where it's at, barring something unforeseen happening, which, I mean, it is the age of COVID, so you never know. But right now, it looks like that's going to hold pretty steady, in my opinion.
Yeah, also, I was, talking about conspiracy theories and running things without a hitch. Maybe those test results don't come in on time over the weekend in order to pay both of these games. Because if you show up on Monday with COVID, you know what the good part about that is, Kyle? You got 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. Very easy to get cleared and back on campus. So keep an eye on those slowed down, maybe COVID tests that, we'll see what happens on those. Let's take a look at the line movements here, Kyle, with the over-unders. Because Tampa Bay and Green Bay opened up at 52. That's dropped to that 51.5 range across the board. But again, from the opening line with Buffalo, Kansas City, it's hard to try to say why that line's moving or the difference between open up at 50 now sitting at 54. It's because there's a lot of uncertainty at the first bell when Pinnacle posts a line offshore where maybe Mahomes doesn't play. They're not going to put a 54 out here if you don't think he's going to play and then reset it at 47 if he does sit the game out, because that's what would happen. Now we're anticipating that 50 goes up to 54. Why? Because the Chiefs are probably going to be healthy and also with their play caller under center.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the one that will move. And, weather's going to play, a factor into this as the weather, we're going to get into that in a second. But as we see it maybe get a little colder if they add some precipitation. I mean, look, there's a lot of time between now and Sunday for these things to change. We've already seen, sort of the forecast change the last couple of days, which we're going to touch on here in a second. So there's going to be some of those small factors. But again, I don't think, barring unless they just say, look, full winter storm, there's going to be 8 inches of snow. You'll probably see these numbers right where they're at. I think the team totals are about right when you look at all the totals. So, like 28-24 in the first game makes a ton of sense. 52 points makes a ton of sense in that game. The number's right about right. That Buffalo-Kansas City game, and that one's going to be a little more interesting to try to figure out if I'm, just like a precursor sort of leading the under there. But if it gets a little bit windier, a little bit wetter, a little bit colder, maybe you see that number shrink. But yeah, I mean, Kansas City, you can pretty much chalk them up for 30 points, especially when Clyde Edwards-Helaire plays. Buffalo, or do you expect Buffalo to be in the teens? Probably not. So those numbers are just about right. And look, we say it, we're not getting any value anymore with these totals. You have 2 conference title games in cold weather. Think about that. In Kansas City and Green Bay, both of them are over 50. 5 years ago, that would be absolutely unheard of. It's kind of insane.
No, it really would be. But when you take a look at the quarterbacks, like weren't these the type of quarterbacks that would be able to provide that over 50s? Nobody's looking to slow it down. There is not a single football team this weekend that goes, you know what, Kyle? We're going to establish the run and take control of this game. It's going to be an aerial assault. And again, if everything holds up with weather conditions and patterns that we're going to take a look at here, we still should be in the clear. So let's talk about it now and say, you know what weather concerns are we actually worried about in this? Because you take a look at Green Bay, that temperature has actually come down a little bit as well. And the low 30s have now turned into, Kyle, 27 at kickoff and maybe down to the lower 20s by the time we finish the game around 6:30. Windy conditions, not really windy, about 10 miles an hour. The one thing that I do like when we take a look at the first game here is, and also with the second game, we're not worried about I wonder how it's going to affect Drew Brees and his arm. These guys are, Tom Brady's older, but that arm can still chuck the football downfield. And Aaron Rodgers, flick of a wrist, is going to get the ball 40 yards downfield. I don't think any weather concerns per se will be involved in this game. Now, as we take a look at the second game, the most interesting thing that's popped up here when we did the show on Tuesday, even looking at Sunday, after, the games went up and everybody started in line, said, let's take a look at the weather. It was around that 45-degree range. Monday and Tuesday then showing in the low 50s with about 8-9 mile-an-hour winds. Now we get the shift, which started yesterday, of dipping down to the 30s. Now we're seeing about 35, 36 degrees at kickoff, Kyle, maybe around 10 mile-an-hour winds. But we're talking about 2 quarterbacks that could throw in an absolute hurricane with how strong their arms are. I don't think the weather's going to be that much of a concern. And also taking a look at, Buffalo plays in cold weather 4 times in under 30 degrees. Kansas City has also played 4 times this year in under 30 degrees. Those offenses still put up points in those games.
Yeah, and I believe, I think I saw your tweet earlier. Aren't they undefeated in those 7 or 8 games?
7-0. Yep.
Yeah, 7-0. So, look, we did see Kansas City, Buffalo, and play in some inclement weather earlier in the year, and it did seem to affect Buffalo just a little bit more than it affected Kansas City. These are 2 way different teams. Obviously Buffalo's won 13 out of 14 since then. I think their only loss was the Hail Murray. So these teams are a lot different. Kansas City a little bit more banged up, you can say, but now they're finally starting to get healthy. And then, of course, you have the two legends in the first game. Cold weather is not going to affect any of these quarterbacks. The only thing that would concern me is if there's for some reason going to be either these massive wind gusts are going to be going through the stadiums, which doesn't appear to be the case right now, or a ton of precipitation, where I'm trying to remember. I think it was an Eagles game a few years back where you woke up and you're like, holy crap, there's 7 inches of snow on the ground. That would affect these players. But other than that, all 4 of these quarterbacks more than capable of playing in cold weather. We've seen Rodgers and Brady do it for years and years. Obviously, Mahomes, it doesn't really matter what he plays in. He's going to be able to sling it. And Josh Allen might be the most physically gifted quarterback in the entire league outside of Mahomes. So I don't expect that to matter that much. Maybe a little harder to catch the football. Maybe you see one more fumble or two. But other than that, I think the weather's holding pretty steady. I'm going to be keeping an eye on Buffalo, Kansas City more so than Tampa Bay, Green Bay, I think.
Yeah, yep, and we got a couple more days to go over that, but it looks like trending in at least a decent direction. Again, what you would worry about is the 20-mile-an-hour winds, 15 degrees and precipitation. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. So, okay, we should be fine in those. Taking a look at some injury situations, we'll start with the Tampa Bay Green Bay Packers game. Tampa Bay, Antonio Brown hasn't practiced all week, left the game early in the Saints game, which I think is kind of a big little, affair that we're going to talk about here because you like to have those 3 wide receivers completely healthy because Tom Brady clearly has a rapport with Antonio Brown. And if he's not going to be on the field, at least hobbled, that means you can focus more on the outside wide receivers, maybe try to include Gronk more over the middle. But that's a definite downgrade from their passing attack if Antonio Brown is not able to go or at least be healthy in that game. Taking a look from a Green Bay Packers perspective, not really too much, outside of a backup running back. I don't really think we're too banged up. You can't really say Bakhtiari anymore because he's been out a few games, and that doesn't really factor in as if he's going to come back into this game. But it looks like from both sides, and also Vita Vea, the young star defensive tackle, looks like he might be able to give it a go, which only boosts that defensive line even more. So it's a nice, clean slate. We're not really having to worry too much about this Tampa Bay Green Bay game.
Yeah, just really the Antonio Brown, and I guess sort of still keep an eye on Ronald Jones, make sure he's continuing to practice throughout the week. He's going to be a big factor in this game if Tampa Bay is going to win. You saw that the first time they played. Antonio Brown was not yet he was a Tampa Bay Buck, but he wasn't allowed to play yet, or they were just getting ready to sign him right around that time. He wasn't there for that game, but the real keys were over the middle of the field. Rob Gronkowski had a big game, one of his bigger games of the year in that game against Green Bay. And Ronald Jones rumbled, ran for over 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns. We've said it over and over again. Despite what some people may think, the weakness of Green Bay is that rushing defense. And teams who were able to have success against Green Bay were able to run the ball and then convert on third down with their quarterback. You've got the perfect recipe right there in Tampa Bay. So, keep sort of an eye on Ronald Jones. I think, you could tell, even though he had some nice runs last week, you could tell he was still a little stiff with that quad, if you will. I know there's jokes for that, but you could tell he was kind of pulling up a little bit when he would get to the sidelines. Fully healthy Ronald Jones will be much more valuable, in my opinion, than Antonio Brown. Even if Antonio Brown plays, doesn't look like he's going to be fully healthy. I'm sure he'll give it a go. He's a tough guy, and not a good guy. Trust me, postseason success couldn't happen to a worse person than Antonio Brown. But nonetheless, doesn't appear he's going to be fully ready to go. But the Ronald Jones factor to me would be the one I'd keep an eye on. He looks pretty good. So, and Green Bay, probably the healthiest of all these teams. Green Bay and Buffalo, pretty healthy football teams coming in this week. So not a whole lot of injury concern outside, of course, Kansas City, where those are the main injuries, in my opinion, in that Kansas City game.
Yeah, let's hit that game. Buffalo and Kansas City, some intriguing prospects in this one because now we see a downgrade with Cole Beasley today, going from a full practice to a limited practice, which means that after that practice Wednesday, his knee flared up a little bit, so we'll see if that calms down. But these guys are gamers. This isn't the week 3 of an NFL season where it's like, hey, we got a long way to go. These guys know in their career it's so hard to get to a championship weekend game that they're going to give it their all to be out there as much as they can. And you saw Cole Beasley already fight through that once here in the postseason already. Now going also, Stephon Diggs still battling that oblique injury. That's another key injury. So that's 2 guys in the wide receiver position. And you know what? We're going to add a third with Gabriel Davis banged up and not practicing yet this week. He's been a nice little find this year as an extra outlet where we were waiting to say, hey, if Josh Allen's going to line up with 5 wide, you got some young emerging players that can really do some damage. Now, if 3 of those guys are banged up in any capacity, you never know how you make it through a game because Cole Beasley might be ready to go, game time decision, play well, and disappear in the second quarter with some knee problems. Same thing with Davis. That's a lot of injury concerns to worry about, specifically speaking, again, with the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes looks like he's going to be there on Sunday, but this isn't just like a miraculous recovery. He did basically get knocked out on Sunday and does have a little bit of a toe injury flare-up. So we don't know how he's going to react. He feels great. He's throwing the football around. But again, it's football. What happens in the first quarter? He rolls out of the pocket and takes a shot from Milano, and oh my goodness, my neck ain't feeling all that good anymore. That certainly could play into it. But the key ingredients here is, going over some options where who's in, who's out, who didn't play this season. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I mean, look, he's not Alvin Kamara. Don't get me wrong. But when he's in the game and not in the game, it's a difference of explosion, and it's a point differential of the 4 games that he missed this year of 11 points. The Chiefs, when Clyde Edwards-Helaire plays, 31 points per game. The Chiefs, when Clyde Edwards-Helaire doesn't play, 20 points a game. That's a big difference. He practiced Wednesday and Thursday. He's on track to play Sunday. And also another key ingredient. The reason why in the past couple of weeks you're looking at the Chiefs saying, not that explosive on offense. When you take away some of those weapons, because even again, it's a young rookie running back, but the screen game opens up, making a couple guys miss. You have to account for him. They know that. Le'Veon Bell's probably going to sit this game out with a knee injury, barely played it all in the previous week. But the other one is Watkins at wide receiver. It's not that he's a game breaker. I mean, the guy was a first-round draft pick, and obviously his paycheck proves that he's a legitimate NFL talent. But it's the fine-tooth comb that I like to say on the opposite side, where you can have all the speed guys, the Hardmans, the Tyreek Hills, and get after your Byron Pringle, for sake. I know you don't think that guy's
Love
name.
Byron Pringle.
But just that guy, 3rd and 6, big body, throw to him first down. That's an added bonus. Looks like he's also on track, Kyle, to play this Sunday.
Yeah, a lot of good news for Chiefs fans today, and another Bashaud Breeland, who we sort of touched on. He's a big ingredient now. Like Stephon Diggs, he's going to play, and he's going to play the entire game. That dude is down, and he's going to get it done. Bashaud Breeland is a very good complement on the other side. The Chiefs secondary is very, very good. I know a lot of people do. Yeah, it is. It's underrated. Like, a lot of people bag on the Chiefs defense, and they do struggle a little bit against the run. But that secondary can absolutely get it done. That's why this is going to be such a tough game for Buffalo. That Kansas City set is very, very underrated. They're one of the better scoring defenses in the NFL. When you really dig deep and start to look at it, you're like, look, Andy Reid, he always gets A. He's an offensive guy. His defense stinks. That is absolutely not the case. So Bashaud Breeland's a really important injury. It looks like he's going to be fine as well as a shoulder concussion type deal. I'll be surprised if anyone sits out if Breeland or Mahomes sit out for those concussions. It just seems really, really unlikely, and they're essentially full goes during practice all week. So assuming everything goes well with those tests, which this is the NFL, I highly, let me dive into my conspiracy theory side. There's no way those tests are, full board. Mahomes is going to walk in. The guy's going to say, "You ready to go?" Yep. He's going to call Roger Goodell. "Hey, should I hold this guy out?" Roger Goodell says, "If you hold that guy out, you will not have a job in the NFL next year." Mahomes is in, but Bashaud Breeland is someone to really keep an eye on. If he's a full go, that is a big boost to Kansas City, because you saw the difference even the first couple of weeks of the year when they didn't have Bashaud Breeland. He was suspended those first 4 games. The defense was not the same. When he is good to go, that secondary can shut down anyone, one of the best secondaries in the league. Bashaud Breeland's important. It looks like Helaire, Watkins. I think the point you made about Watkins is spot on. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Look, Darrell Williams was a fine complimentary back, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire just gives you that another layer of explosivity. And again, the weakness of the Buffalo defense, stopping the run. When you look at that first game, he was one of the few players in that game to actually have a big game. There wasn't, when both of these teams played, even though Tampa Bay scored 38 points, not a whole lot of big explosive offensive plays. It was the ground game and the defenses of the winning side that won the game, and I expect that to be the case again this weekend.
No, and I agree with you. When you take a look at concussions in the NFL, we know a lot more than we did even a few years ago, but I think there's different standards between the regular season and the postseason where we say, hey, look, man, we got 17 weeks. You're banged up. Even though you are cleared through protocol, let's sit you out this Sunday, and we'll go full go next week, give you that extra week. As they like to say, there is no tomorrow in the playoffs. So, yes, I don't think there's any, because you still have to get cleared by an independent neurologist either way with a concussion, and they're not going to be swayed either way. But I do think in the regular season, some of these guys technically are clear, and the team's going, hey, man, whether or not we win or not, that we're going to live to fight another day. We're not going to put anything in peril. But in the playoffs, it's really under a microscope where if you're good to go and clear by Saturday, hey, the doctor said he's good to go. We're going to put him out there. That's going to be the case here. But your point is valid on Bashaud Breeland, when he's in and when he is out, the difference on that defense, because it's not to say he's a top 5 cornerback in the NFL, but now you don't have a guy that you take out. Let's just say he's a top 30 cornerback in the NFL, just, random. The other guy now turns even more, and who comes in for him? But the issue is not so much that, Kyle. It's what happens now if we get an injury in the secondary. Now we're moving safeties around. We can't cover. So just him being in the ball game is going to be a huge difference there for the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's have some fun and really get after these games here now. Tampa Bay and Green Bay, if we look at here on the docket, 311, 312. Brady and Rodgers, about 6 out of every 10 tickets in here coming in on those Green Bay Packers. Opened up at 3.5, still 3.5, still 3s across the board. This is a fun one to look out for. And just some simple calculations when we look at it, both of these quarterbacks are really good. Both of them can get heated up at any time. And it almost seems, Kyle, the same theme that we talk week in, week out, a really good, it's no longer the case like it used to be back in the day. We used to say a good defense beats a good offense. That's not the case anymore. A good offense beats a great defense any and every time, it seems like, in the NFL. Now, there are extenuating circumstances, like when we saw the Green Bay Packers earlier in the year get wasted by the Tampa Bay Bucks. But then we saw last week, what's the best defense in the NFL? The Rams. They couldn't hold a candle to what Green Bay was serving them last week up in Lambeau. I look for a same type of game, but when we take a look at the over-under in this one, 51.5. Is this going to be one of those Tampa Bay games that they had against New Orleans, Kyle, where we see like some 15-play drives, 7.5 minutes eating up the clock? That's all you need, and now you're over 51.5 is already in peril. The interesting part that I look about in this game, Kyle, and this is a lot used to do, and people still look at this in the regular season. Now, there are no fans. The one interesting thing, an interesting caveat that we have, if we look at Tampa Bay, they've been on the road or will be on the road now 3 straight games in the playoffs. Now, the interesting part also from a Green Bay perspective is when we talked about those bye weeks, there's only one per conference, AFC, NFC. Green Bay got that. But if you look at their overall schedule, Kyle, they played on the road versus Chicago in the third. They've been home for the past couple weeks, same beds, haven't had to change anything, playing at home. That is a huge advantage for an NFL team's 3rd straight game on the road and then going up to Lambeau to play it.
Yeah, it's really tough. But look, you flip that around too. All the pressure's on Green Bay. So everything you just said spells it out. There are no excuses for the Green Bay Packers. You have the number 1 seed. You've got all the rest. You're the healthiest team left in the playoffs. Your quarterback is clearly the MVP of the league, playing better than any quarterback in the NFL right now. It's absolutely phenomenal. All the pressure is on Green Bay to get this done at home. And look, I've been on Green Bay. I still, I think Green Bay and Kansas City end up in the Super Bowl. I do. But I am starting to find a lot of ways Tampa Bay can win this football game. When you just start digging into, I start becoming a stat nerd and looking some of these advanced metrics. Green Bay, not great at getting to the quarterback. They're not one of these premier pass rushing teams in the NFL. They're very vulnerable against the run. If Davante Adams is somehow pulled from this game, or if you're able to get pressure on Rodgers, which is exactly what Tampa Bay did in that first game way back in October, you can really, really throw this offense off, and there is a pathway to victory, especially if you get ahead, because Green Bay, if you're in a position where you're not coming from behind and having to throw the ball a lot, they struggle against the run. I mean, Ronald Jones absolutely tore this team apart earlier this year, as well as Keyshawn Vaughn, even like 8 carries. He was averaging like 9 yards a carry in that game as well. I went back and rewatched it. It wasn't even Leonard Fournette there. So there are paths to victory here. Obviously, the weakness of Tampa Bay is that secondary, but the strength by far, they are the best rushing defense in the NFL. We already saw it. We joked about it last week. Oh, maybe Matt LaFleur was holding Aaron Jones back just so we could use him a bunch in the playoffs. No, that's not what happened. Jamal Williams is out there a ton. A.J. Dillon, their 3rd running back, really should be their number 2 running back. Their 3rd running back nearly fumbled the game away. I mean, if the ball didn't fall right into Aaron Rodgers' lap right there in the backfield by his feet, that could have been a whole different story in that game. But you look at that first game, 10 carries for 15 yards for Aaron Jones. Tampa Bay really stout against the run, so it's going to be up to Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, and he better hope that Valdez-Scantling and Allen Lazard and Robert Tonyan bring their hands and don't drop footballs, because they're going to need him in this game against that secondary. I'm still leaning the Green Bay Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers is just too red hot, and I do like that secondary a lot for the Packers. I think they can slow down those receiving options for Tampa Bay. But if that blitz of Tampa Bay gets to Aaron Rodgers, if you're looking at a montage in the fourth quarter of all the pressure that Aaron Rodgers has been under, Tampa Bay is going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because I do think, like, when we talk about the Chiefs, which we will in just a few moments, they get the same sort of tag on their defense when Green Bay has a very good defense and really only two questionable games on the season. Earlier at New Orleans, where they gave up 122 on the ground, 275 in the air, and then a little bit later on, which is a game where they had 140 on the ground against them and 280 in the air, and that was on the road once again against the Colts. At home, they've been a pretty stout defense and always giving themselves a chance to be in it from an offensive perspective. Like at home versus the Rams, 96 on the ground, 148 in the air. Remember the Tennessee game at home? 40-14 game, 156 on the ground, 104 in the air. And I think like 56 of those yards came on a Tannehill broken play, handoff scramble on the outside for a touchdown. So they've done very well at home, but the same synopsis early in the week, and I already bet the Green Bay Packers at -3, -125 is, it's Lambeau Field. I'm getting extraordinary quarterback play out of Green Bay. And the same adage, which has now changed in the NFL, if I get a really good defense, but I'm going up against a Hall of Fame quarterback or one of the best ever, like Aaron Rodgers, it sort of nullifies it. The best way to get after an unbelievable quarterback, you're right, is an organic pass rush from the front four that continually collapses the pocket. We've seen it. They had a nice game earlier in the year when Tampa Bay played against Green Bay on the road. They looked well. Even when you go back to last year's NFC title game, where it was like that San Francisco front seven was on fire, and they're saying, I'm just going to sick these four dogs on you, and it's going to be hilarious out here to watch. And they were completely undermanned and overwhelmed. So that is the way to get after. But just the way that Aaron Rodgers has been playing, even in a write-up I did earlier, when you take a look at Green Bay, like last week, the pathway to victory for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they got 4 turnovers in that game. 3 of those were from interceptions. Aaron Rodgers has played 17 games this year, if we include the playoffs, 5 total interceptions. You're not going to get, 3 turnovers in the first half and have short fields going up against Green Bay. You are going to have to drive 75 yards to score points to go against the Packers. I think that's going to be a key indicator, but I just can't pass up a team's 3rd straight road game now coming into play Aaron Rodgers. And let's also not forget, it's hard in the NFL to win on the road. They've already done it twice. But you know who they beat? Taylor Heineke on the road in the Washington football team, and then went down and supposedly plantar fasciitis, 37 cracked ribs, collapsed lung, horrible old arm, coupled with a rotator cuff injury for Drew Brees. That ain't the case this weekend.
Yeah, they apparently played Xelgens is what they did. All the side effects from Xelgens. That's what they played. And then the whining from Michael Thomas too. Oh, I looked like crap in that game because I just was battling through it. And, they do this all the time. And look, Tom Brady does this too. Everyone's favorite Tom Brady. Every time he loses a Super Bowl, what always pops up on the injury report the next day? Oh, well, he had a hurt foot. He was in a walking boot this week. Shut the hell up. Drew Brees, your arm was dead. Your game plan was pathetic. Michael Thomas was pathetic. And you're right. If this was New Orleans going into this cold weather game, we wouldn't even be thinking about this. It would just be like, I wouldn't. The cap would be 30 seconds. Yeah, take the Packers. It's cold weather, Drew Brees. It's not going to happen. But Tom Brady, there are some paths here, like we talked about. And you're right. The organic 4-man pass rush, that's not how Tampa Bay does it. How they do it is with the blitz. And that's what ended up getting to Aaron Rodgers in that first game they played. I know it was a long time ago, so I don't put all of my stock into that first game, obviously. But when you try to go through and look at games where maybe Aaron Rodgers didn't look like his MVP self, you mentioned he had 5 interceptions this year. 2 of them were in that game against Tampa Bay. That first pick 6, I believe it was Jamel Dean who picked him off and took it back after they were up 10-0. That just shattered the Packers. But back then, that Tampa Bay secondary was red hot. Carlton Davis was an emerging star as a shutdown corner, and that's not really the case anymore. They have actually regressed quite a bit in that secondary. The front seven's still very mean, but they blitz more than any team in the NFL except the Baltimore Ravens. So there's going to be openings there. I think one thing to keep an eye on, which would be a smart coaching move, and I expect to see it, I expect to see Aaron Jones out in passing routes more than he has been this year, and he should be. He's a great receiver out of the backfield. One way to negate that blitz that so affected Aaron Rodgers in that first game and forced him to make some mistakes and ended up turning into a disastrous game was Tampa Bay has 2 really fast young linebackers in Levante David and the other, Devin White.
Yeah.
if you can keep them occupied in the passing game, make them stay honest and have to deal with that running back out of the backfield, run those little wheel routes, those little circle routes over the middle, get the ball to Aaron Jones in spots where now the defense can't bring, two of the fastest linebackers in the league off a blitz. Green Bay has a great offensive line, but when you bring guys like that, it creates a mismatch. If you can keep them occupied in the passing game with your tight ends and your running backs, that's going to help the offensive line. I think that's one big adjustment Green Bay can make. They make that adjustment. Aaron Rodgers playing out of this world right now. All signs point to Green Bay. I don't think you're crazy for taking Tampa Bay. I do think there is a path to victory for them, but everything has to go right. You've got to get that pressure on. Your running game's got to work. You got to battle through this fatigue of, like you said, being on the road 3 consecutive weeks. A lot needs to go right for Tampa Bay, and I do believe it could happen. I think the best underdog bet of the week is Tampa Bay. I think they have a better chance than Buffalo. But right now I'm still with you. I got to lean the Packers -3, but I am nervous about it. I don't feel great about it because Aaron Rodgers' pouty face keeps wobbling around in my brain.
Yeah, there's very few holes in these teams that we're trying to poke a hole in now that we're down to the Final Four. It's very easy to do this with the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Philadelphia Eagles, or, hey, maybe Arizona's defense can't hold up and they, go fast on offense. That's not really the case. You're looking at, 10 bell teams coming in here with legitimate coaches, legitimate coaching staffs, and unbelievable quarterback play coupled with some fantastic athletes. And we're going to go to the second game, 3-13, 3-14, the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. It does still say undecided as the quarterback, but on Sunday night, I decided that Patrick Mahomes is going to be in. I know Akbar always likes this, picking up the phone. Boop, boop, boop. People are saying now that he's probably not going to play next week. It's Donnie. On Tuesday, he will be in this week, and let's all fun. Yeah. I even put the tweet out with the Adam Sandler eating the bowl of cereal, just laughing like, if he doesn't play next week, look at the line opening up. Buffalo. I said, you have got to be out of your mind. The minute he sprinted into the locker room should have gave you the notion that not only he might come back into this game, which would have been ridiculous at the picture of the NFL. We care about injuries, and he's knocked out on the field and can barely get up like he was a drunken soldier. But the minute he sprinted into the locker room, like a minute later, he's playing next week, and he will be in this game. We take a look now. Obviously, opened up at 50, now sits at 54. Weather concerns, not really, but boy, it would have been nicer to play 50 degrees and 35 degrees and 8 miles an hour as opposed to 12 miles an hour. But you're talking about two guys with howitzers on their arms. Do you think Patrick Mahomes cares about 10-mile-an-hour winds? Josh Allen cares about 10-mile-an-hour winds? No, they don't. But when you take a look at this game, I love these teams are coming in hot. And as I just said in the previous game, we're trying to poke holes in teams that are have a combined 4 losses or 5 losses on the season. And you're looking at 2 quarterbacks playing extremely elite football in Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. 2 offensive coordinators, one side Brian Daboll, the other side of Andy Reid, just dialing up masterpiece after masterpiece and don't mind going for it on 4th down. This should be a fun football game, but just the situation I talked in the last game, Kyle. Who has the bye? Kansas City had the bye. When we talked about Green Bay being home and rested versus Tampa Bay going on the road for the 3rd straight game, that's a big advantage. But look at Kansas City. And I'm going to tell you this. On December 20th, they played in New Orleans and snuck out a win 32-29. And in that game, Drew Brees had a backdoor touchdown, which why couldn't he do it last week? I don't know, but you're going to get me all fired up already. Yeah. That plane landed December 20th in Kansas City. I'm looking at it right now. It's January 21st. You're going to have January 22nd, January 23rd, finally playing the game on the 24th. They haven't left home in an entire month. Same bed, same practice facility, home field advantage, rested. Now, Buffalo has played a lot of games at home, and now this week we'll go on the road. But you're talking about a team that hasn't had to leave town in over a month as the top seed, a massive advantage for the Chiefs.
Oh, it's a huge advantage. And look, I think we could all agree the team hit most by the injury bug coming into this week is the Kansas City Chiefs. Clearly, I mean, the best player in football. There's this, I guess, question mark. I'm with you. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Like I'll use the Magic Bean reference again. If you don't think Patrick Mahomes is going to play this week, hit me up on Twitter afterwards. I'll sell you these Magic Beans. You can go up, see the Giant, steal the Magic Harp, do whatever the hell it is that you want to do because you're a moron and you will believe anything. Patrick Mahomes is going to be in this game. And it all comes down to this for me. My heart, everything in my body will be rooting for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. I love the Bills. I want them to win I've been rooting for them to win a Super Bowl, not against my 49ers since the 90s. I mean, all the way back to the Scott Norwood miss, to the blowouts against Dallas and everything in between. I love the Buffalo Bills. I love Chris Berman. I love that he loved the Bills, just all about it. I'm rooting for the Bills. But I can't find the path to victory for the Buffalo Bills this week. That's the problem. If Mahomes is out, maybe. But when you just break it all down, look, the strength of the Buffalo Bills, it's their passing game. It's that wonderful quarterback, the great receivers. Do you think they have a better passing game than the Kansas City Chiefs? They do not. When you look at the weakness for the Kansas City Chiefs, it's against the run. Does Buffalo have a great running game? No, they do not. Josh Allen will most likely be their leading rusher, just like he was in that game earlier in the year. When you look at Buffalo, when you look at the defenses, they're ranked, when you go through every advanced metric, they're almost 10, 11, 11, 10, 10 and 12 in almost every single category. The defenses match up great. Tre'Davious White is probably the best defensive player on both teams who will be on the field, but he doesn't have the skill set to match up with Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill can get open against anybody. And I know I'm rambling about a lot of mediocre stats, but like Donnie said, there's not a lot of holes in these teams. These are 4 great teams. So you got to dig deep to try to find, where am I getting an advantage? And I'm sorry, the advantages across the board line up for the Kansas City Chiefs from top to bottom. Better running game and passing game on offense. Better passing defense just by a marginal bit. Both teams do struggle a little bit against the run, but the Bills have no one to take advantage of that. So as much as my heart wants Buffalo to win, I just can't see the path. I'll be rooting for it, but it's got to be the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, and there's a rooting interest as well, because people used to get upset with me and still do in the past when, like, let's just say I bet against my Eagles and I'm tweeting on here and, giving out a play for let's just say the Dallas Cowboys. Why are you cheering? Because you have to take the emotionality out of it. I am rooting for the Bills. I actually have 2 futures to win a Super Bowl. One is on Buffalo, one is Kansas City. The only 2 that I placed. I make way more money if Buffalo gets to the Super Bowl. I'm cheering for the Buffalo Bills, but I placed a wager already this week, Kansas City -3, -110. And if that doesn't work out, then it doesn't. But it shouldn't change your effect of, I can't watch the game now because I want to cheer for the Bills, but I want to bet Kansas City. Now I'm not going to. Don't have that with your life. Lay the wood, cheer the team on, because you know what? Oh, man, Kansas City didn't win. Then you go check on your bank account. It's like, damn, look at all the cash I got in my bank account, vice versa in that respect. So you can certainly detach yourself emotionally from the wager and still have fun with watching the overall football game. But when we take a look at this, try to find those, added things, because under, 40 degrees, both of these teams do really well, because most people would be surprised. Say, wait, Kansas City, they're playing like 75 degrees all year. Not the case, man. It gets cold in the plains there in the Midwest. And they've actually had 4 games which they played in the cold. And also taking a look at those 4 games, only 2 Mahomes has really started, start to finish. And they were the Denver Broncos game. One of those games, they put up 45 points in the snow for the Broncos. The second one in the low 20s. But take a look at this. And this is also where I see public perception and where the line can actually go, because they weren't sure where to put the game, figuring that Patrick Mahomes wasn't going to be in this game if he wasn't going to play. But outside of that, let's just watch last week's game. And, he's tweaked his toe in the first half, but yet he's still running for 15-yard first down, throwing lasers. 7 minutes to go in the third quarter. It's 19-10. He gets knocked out. Let's just say he rolls out of the pocket and throws that football away and doesn't get injured. Are we led to believe that this game would have been a 5-point game late, or was this headed to one of those 34-14 type finishes? Oh, yeah. So my point being is, we look at the spread now. If Patrick Mahomes finishes that game, wipes Cleveland out, is this going to be 3? Hell, I'm telling you, Kyle, 5.5, 6. Honest to God, I thought it should have been on the board.
Yeah, it probably should have been. And there's some stats that go against it. Their last 8 wins of the year, they didn't cover this. I think they covered the spread in one of them. They won all those games by less than 6 points. Patrick Mahomes, though, it should be noted, 4-2 in his 6 playoff/Super Bowl games, 4-2 against the spread. And you're right, they would have beaten the absolute brakes off of Cleveland last week. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a long day. So a little bit colder weather. We don't think the weather's going to impact much. A little bit colder weather, you're relying entirely on Josh Allen and that passing game playing into the strength of the opposing team's defense. I'm telling you, all it's going to take is a couple of stops, and this Chiefs offense will score at will. They're going to be fully engaged, looking to be the first back-to-back Super Bowl champion since the Patriots in 03-04. Man, I love the Bills. I'll be rooting so hard for it. But it's really, 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 really difficult for me to find the pathway to victory. And I'm going to surmise real quick for you too, Donnie's explanation of what you do with your fandom here and your betting. The moral of the story is grow up, stop being a baby. I don't know why this country, we're a bunch of babies. I'm just going to rant. We're a bunch of babies in this damn country. We can't tell a joke. We can't have fun. We can't. I mean, I sent some like funny thing about like the inauguration. Next thing you know, I love this guy, hate this guy. I don't give a damn about any of them. Grow up, make your own decisions, quit whining, watch the game, bet on it, root for the other side. Who gives a damn? Have some fun. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. We're supposed to have fun, be sports fans, be a grown up, enjoy this weekend. It's going to be a lot of damn fun. I'm done ranting. There we go.
No, it is. And by the way, before we end the show here, I already placed wagers, and we're going to have a lot of prop bets on Sunday, but I am on Green Bay, -3, -125, and also the Kansas City Chiefs, -3. So I'm going chalk in both of those games. From the ticket count, obviously a public favorite Green Bay, not a public favorite Kansas City. Buffalo is that, but I just see it that way. Yeah. The worst case scenario, I would be very surprised if Tampa Bay and Buffalo pull off wins on the road. And again, we've never seen this before in the NFL. Not a lot of fans, but you're still going to get like 16,000, 17,000 fans in Kansas City. But the fact that now this is the game where it's supposed to come into play. This is where the attrition kicks in, and I have fresher football teams at home with both Green Bay and Kansas City. That's where I'm going. Have you taken any wagers yet this weekend on these weekend's games, Kyle?
The only wager I've made, which is funny because I'm with you. I like Green Bay. I think it's going to be Green Bay and Kansas City. I do think Tampa Bay is the liver of the two dogs. So if you're looking for some value, I do believe there's value on Tampa Bay. But my favorite bet of the week, the one that I've just made a bet on literally while Donnie was talking during the show, I took the over 23.5 team total for Tampa Bay. I really did. So if I'm doing that, I'm probably going to be looking at that over in that first game, 28-24. It's going to be greasy. It's going to be tough. 24-degree weather. You're rooting for an over 52, but I could see the over in that first game. But the bet I like the most, even though I'm leaning Green Bay, I'm 55-45 Green Bay, Tampa Bay, if you will, on the side there. My favorite one is that 23.5 team total for Tampa Bay. And there's simple math that goes along with that in betting. You get, Tampa Bay, like you mentioned before the show, Tampa Bay has 10 points at the halftime. You need 2 points, 2 extra points. You're at 24. They can lose the game and still hit their team total. Well, there's not as much value everywhere else. So I like the Tampa Bay team total, but I'm with you. I think we see Green Bay, Kansas City, Mahomes versus Rodgers in what should be a lot of fun in the Super Bowl.
And Scott P says, my color is green. Correct. Green, the color of money, and midnight green, the color of everybody's favorite team, those Philadelphia Eagles. Thanks for tuning in here on Thursday. Nice, quick, action-packed, short show. Championship weekend. Keep in mind, once again, Kyle and I will be live on Sunday at 2 o'clock, a full-hour show going right up to kickoff of the first game between Tampa Bay and Green Bay. A wonderful Sunday to put a cap on this NFL season. Super Bowl 2 weeks away, but this is a wonderful, wonderful celebration on Sunday. We're going to have fun here, go over prop bets, sides, latest information, who's in, who's out. Hey, maybe Sunday we're coming here talking about, oh my God, Patrick Mahomes didn't clear, concussion protocol. Now he's out. Now what to do with this line that's running all over the place. A lot of fun to be had here. But once again, thanks for tuning in. 79,600. Hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys for tuning in, coming into the chat box and saying hello. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. We are sportsbook.com. And this was your championship NFL episode for Thursday. Join us on Sunday. Good luck on your wagers.